Welcome to CHS News. This is Justin. Swaying over to Nick Sexton is going to interview Democratic and Republican candidates.
Hi, I'm Nick Sexton from CHS, and I'm interviewing the Republican candidate, Timmy Webster. Mr. Webster, let's talk about moral issues. What is your opinion on same-sex marriage?
No.
Okay. Let's talk about immigration. What should be the requirements for legal immigration?
I'm all for immigration, legal immigration that is. There are steps that this country has set up that allow for citizens from other countries to become citizens of the United States. You have to go through processes, tests, and once you have learned the ways of our country, I believe you can be a citizen. I'm not for illegal immigration. I don't think they should be allowed to stay here.
Then how do you feel about illegal immigration?
We should build a wall. Big, beautiful wall.
Alrighty, that's a good answer. Alright, let's talk about poverty. What do you think of the government's role in the issue of poverty, spending on welfare, food stamps, and employment benefits? All of that.
I think it's the responsibility of private organizations to fund the poor. The government should be focused more on the national interest of the country, not as much the people in general. The police force and paramedics, people like that, are focused more on the people, but the government as a whole should not be funding the poor. There are systems set up where if you're injured, you can get help until you can work again, but I think you need to be working.
Perfect. Alright, let's go to abuses and drug and alcohol standards. Do you believe that the overall medical benefits of marijuana outweighs the risks and potential harms of others?
I don't think it does, because marijuana is a gateway drug, as many people have stated. I know that's cliche, but it really is. People start with marijuana, and they can get medical marijuana that was meant for someone to help them, and they can use it and abuse it when they don't have the prescription.
And the drinking age in America, do you agree with it, or do you want to change it?
I agree with it. I don't think it should go any younger.
Interesting. All right, let's go to crime and punishment. How should we properly determine a criminal sentence?
Well, I don't think the criminal system is how it should be. I think it's very lax in some areas. They allow for people to get off with things they shouldn't. I think it should run an eye for an eye.
And should our emphasis be on punishment or rehabilitation?
Punishment. There are private organizations and rehab facilities for inmates and prisoners after they are released from jail that they can go to and get help to learn how to live normal functioning lives.
Interesting. Let's talk about a huge problem in America, healthcare. Do you support a national healthcare system or individual healthcare company?
I don't support the national healthcare system. Let me tell you why. The national healthcare system makes people pay more money than some would necessarily have to pay for a private insurance. Therefore, they're being taxed and regulated on what they can spend and not being able to choose what they spend.
Interesting. So, what's your opinion on Medicare and Medicaid?
Medicare, I think, is a decent program. It helps people that are over the age of 65 that have put taxes in. I do think that it's a little too much. I think that private organizations like healthcare should not be handled by the government. And Medicaid, what are we exactly helping there?
Interesting. Now let's go to education. Do you think education legalization should lie on state or federal government? Legislation, my bad.
I think there needs to be bills passed and things that set a required standard for the overall standards of education. But I don't think it's a problem if one state wants to excel in that and take the standards over the top.
So do you agree with the standardized testing?
No, I don't agree with the standardized testing. I think there should just be a set of regulations, like things you have to teach, certain curriculums and things. The schools can choose, but that are all fairly similar and teach the basics of history, algebra, things like that.
Interesting. Let's get to a huge problem. Military and defense. Do you think government should require mandatory military service to all citizens?
I think government should. I don't necessarily think it should be all right, everybody, you're going into the Marines, you have to be a frontline soldier. But look at Israel. Israel has everyone serve in the military for 4 years. I don't necessarily think 4 years is a good time. I would say maybe 2. but everyone would have some military training. Therefore, if we do experience any sort of attack or things like that on American soil, everyone's prepared.
Interesting. So what is your policy regarding drafting?
It depends. If it's a major war, like world wars, if we need troops, then we need to use the draft. But not a wartime draft. We shouldn't have a non-wartime draft. We don't need the soldiers. There's enough people that are good and willing and able patriots that come and join voluntarily.
Interesting. In gun control, would you enforce gun restriction?
I'd actually tone down on the gun restriction because I think that gun-free zones are just target practice for someone that's demented. If people know everyone is armed or most people are armed, no one is going to want to go into that area.
Interesting. All right, last but not least, economic policy. Would you manage tax policy according to income?
I'm for a flat tax overall, just because then everyone is treated fairly. The government still gets the income that it normally would. And based on income, that would be favoring people that don't necessarily work and charging them less, essentially giving them benefits for doing less.
That's interesting. Well, that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. It's CHS News, Republican candidate, Timmy Webster. Hi, I'm here with Democratic Representative Grant Taylor. So Grant, I got a couple questions for you.
Oh, sure.
Let's talk about moral issues. Should abortion be legalized?
Well, Nick, one of the foundational concepts of our nation is the concept of freedom. And I just don't think it's any of our rights to take away that freedom from young women across the country. So, I think abortion should be legal.
Yeah, all right. What is your opinion of same-sex marriage?
Well, like I said, it's the freedom that we're talking about, Nick. I don't think it's up to us or any specific religion to define what marriage means. So I think that everyone has the right to love. Love wins.
All right, let's move on to our next questions. Immigration. What should be the requirements for legal immigration?
I think it's very clear that they're too high right now. I think that's one of the explanations for our problem with legal immigration. I think that too many people feel pressured into illegally coming to America because it's just not realistic for them to be able to do it legally. So I think we definitely need to lower those standards.
And how would you deal with those illegal immigration?
Well, I just don't think that it's our right to take away that freedom from those people. So I think that they should be assimilated, if that's the right word, into our country.
Nice, okay. All right, let's move on to our next question. Poverty. What do you think of the government's role in the issue of poverty, spending on welfare, food stamps, and unemployment benefits?
Well, I am for these programs and these benefits. I think it's very clear that the way that Republicans want the economy to work, that the poor are kind of just left to fend for themselves. I think it's up to us to help them. Now, I don't think necessarily these ideas are working right now, but I think that we can repackage them and get them going pretty good.
Okay. Now let's move on. Drug and alcohol standards. Do you believe that the overall medical benefits of marijuana outweighs the risks and potential harms of others?
I think that, just due to research, I think it's very clear. I think it's ignorant to say that. It would be ignorant to say that marijuana is as harmful as alcohol. I think that there are a lot of benefits to it. And let's be honest, it's pretty chill. So let's make that legal.
And your opinion on the drinking age?
I think it's good. I don't think it needs to change. I think once you're 21, I think you're ready to handle yourself. So I think that it's good.
Okay, moving on. Crime and punishment. How should we properly determine a criminal sentence?
Well, I think I like the way our judiciary system works as of now. Obviously there is still some bias, specifically on the subject of racism in our federal Justice Department. So I think that will pass. I think that problem will resolve itself soon. But I think that we're doing a good job as of now.
Okay, and what should be your emphasis on punishment and rehabilitation?
Yeah, I think that the focus should be more on rehabilitation. I think things such as the death penalty, I just think that it's not our call to take a human life like that. I think that if we're just locking people up, then we're just kind of wasting taxpayer money. So I think that our focus should be on helping these people get back into society.
Perfect. Economic policy. All right, that's a tough one. What action would you take regarding an increasing national debt?
increasing national debt. Well, I think one of the main problems is the funding that we put into certain federal programs over the last half century. I think that a lot of them just don't work, to be honest. And I think that instead of getting rid of those programs, I think that we should, like I said, just recycle and repackage them and help them become more efficient.
And would you manage tax policy?
Yes, I think that tax policy is a big problem in this country. I mean, you got Mitt Romney paying the same amount as people way under his income. So I just think that it should. I think taxes should change depending on what you're earning every year.
Interesting. All right, let's talk about education. Do you think education legalization should lie on state or federal government?
I think
Hey,
it should
start
be
that over. Nate said education legalization, not legislation.
Legislation.
Ignore him.
Let me redo that one. Do you think education legislation should lie on state or federal government?
I think it should definitely be a federal issue. I think that if you look at the numbers, America isn't where it needs to be in ranking in terms of education. I think that it should not only be better, but it should be a uniform policy across the U.S. just to ensure that we're at the top.
And what is your opinion on? Let's talk about healthcare. What is your opinion on Medicare and Medicaid?
Is my belief that healthcare is everyone's fundamental right as a human being, especially living in the United States. I think that's just a necessary piece of the puzzle. So I think that we should keep Medicare and Medicaid, again, finding a balance between what we currently have now and where we need to be.
So you support national healthcare?
Yes. In other words.
Let's talk about military and defense. Last question here. Do you support let's talk about military and defense here. Last question. Do you think government should require mandatory military services to all citizens?
I do not. Honestly, it's just unnecessary, especially during times of peace. So I would say no.
And what about drafting?
Yeah, again, like mandatory service, I'm just not for that. I think a lot of people have other plans for their life.
Okay. And that's Mr. Taylor, the Democratic representative. And this is CHS News.
I'll ask you some questions about moral issues. Do you think should abortion be legalized? What's your opinion about it?
Personally, I do not think abortion should be legalized, and me as a Republican candidate, I will seek to get the defunding of Planned Parenthood put into play, and I think that a child's life is sacred no matter what. I think that even if it's the life of the mother that's in jeopardy here, abortion is murder, and dying in birth is still a natural cause of death. It's not something like she was harmed and therefore she died. So I think that abortion is not okay and it won't be supported by the Republican Party.
Okay. All right, Mr. Taylor, what's your opinion about it?
Well, as a Christian, I don't personally, I'm not okay with abortion personally. But as an American citizen and as a presidential candidate, I have to support it just based on the freedom that our country offers. I think that it would be contradictory to take that away from women, especially at the risk of their health. Every person's situation is different, but I think that a woman has the right to choose.
Okay. That's very thoughtful.
Real quick, do you guys want to chance this on to each other, or
I'm good with that.
okay? Next question.
Let's talk about immigration. What should be the requirement for legal immigration? And how do you guys deal with illegal immigration?
I think it's obvious that right now the process is too difficult to become an American citizen. I think that's one of the explanations we have for so many illegal immigrants. So I think that, of course, we shouldn't make it easy to get in our country, but I think that there's a balance that we can strike. I think that America offers things that no other country can, so I think that it's only fair that we share that with our border nations.
So, okay, what's your opinion about immigration?
My opinion on immigration is that there are set up processes and tests and things that you have to pass and go through in order to get a visa or to gain citizenship. And because of that, I think that the illegal immigration is a problem because we do have about 1 million immigrants coming in illegally that are getting jobs and taking away from somewhere near 15 million that are unemployed. And if you were an American citizen and you were getting your job taken or losing it because of someone who's coming into this country without the correct credentials or doesn't know our laws or respect them, I think that's wrong.
Just as a follow-up, what would you do for illegal immigrants who are currently in our country? Do you think there should be some sort of path to citizenship? Do you think they should be deported? How would you deal with that?
I think there should be a path to citizenship. They need to go through the due processes that are already in place, the tests and things like that. And if they cannot pass those, they should be deported. Or if they refuse to pass those, they should be deported.
Okay. Let's talk about poverty. What do you guys think if the government's role in the issue of poverty, spending on welfare, food stamps, unemployment benefits? Who do you guys think would be the candidates for these problems?
What would be the what for these problems?
For the problems such as like government's role, what should government's role be like?
What should the government's role be?
Yeah, in the issue of poverty. Yeah.
I believe the government's role in poverty and things is very limited. I support helping people that have just been laid off and maybe in search of a job and are struggling to provide for their family. But I do not support funding people on welfare for long terms of time because then they can cheat the system, things like that. And it's essentially the job of private institutions and churches, things like that, to fund the poor. If they need help, they can go to them. It's not the government's role to do so.
I believe that the government has a responsibility to take direct action in funding middle and lower classes. I think that it'd be foolish to think that some miracle is going to happen if there's no intervention. So I support programs, welfare programs that help these people. I think that there should be regulations on what brackets those are to define who gets these welfare, and I think there should be some restrictions on, periods of time, things like that. But I do think that the government has a responsibility to help the citizens.
So what specific restrictions would you make? Like what time period do you think is okay? What restrictions would you put on like who qualifies?
Well, I think that's similar to what a lot of jobs offer now, which is like a year, which is about a year of severance. I think that that's appropriate past that severance for another year to be added on. But I think that there should be like monitors on how diligent they are in finding a job.
Okay. Next question is about drug and alcohol standards. Do you believe the overall medical benefits of marijuana outweigh the risks of potential harms?
What would be please answer this one? Can I repeat the question?
Okay. Do you believe that the overall medical benefits of marijuana outweigh the risk and potential harms?
The Democratic Party believes that the alcohol standards should remain, but that marijuana should be legalized, and we believe so because the medicinal properties of marijuana, we do believe that it overshadows any potential negative outcomes because it is currently being used, even though it is not under federal law. It is currently being used in many states as medical marijuana for its curative, or it helps dealing with chronic pain for a lot of diseases. So we believe that these people that have very serious diseases and illnesses should be able to have some sort of rest from such painful.
Okay, I have one more question for you. So what do you think should be the consequences of breaking this law?
Okay. As of now, I believe that instead of having to serve many years in prison for minor possession with no intent to distribute, the people should be fined instead of having to serve so many years.
As a member of the Republican Party, we don't support the legalization of marijuana, including recreational marijuana, because we believe for medical use there are still legal drugs that will do the same effect as marijuana. For underage drinking, we still maintain the age of 21. That's the age for teenagers to be mature enough to take responsibility of their own action. And for underage drinking, there will be certain punishment due to their action.
Okay. Let's talk about crime and punishment. How do you think we should properly determine a criminal sentence?
I think we should properly determine a criminal sentence based on the crime they commit. I'm not for capital punishment in any way, shape, or form for someone who shoplifts, but there should be a consequence for things like that. I believe it's like an eye for an eye. If you kill someone and you appeal to the courts, you should not be put on death row and left to sit for the rest of your life. The process should be swifter than it is. The appeal process should be cut shorter.
Okay, one more question. Should our emphasis be on punishment or rehabilitation?
I think the role of the government is to punish those who have committed crimes, and there are private institutions like rehab clinics for drug addicts and things like that that help to rehabilitate and return them to society as better humans.
Okay.
First question was.
The first question was how should we properly determine a criminal sentence?
I think, like Mr. Webster said, I agree that it should fit the crime. I think there's a difference between a murderer and someone that is selling pot or something like that. So I think that it's just common sense how to determine those. I think it should be regulated, though. I think there can be a lot of variation within our system, so I think that needs to be fixed.
Okay. The second question was, should our emphasis be on punishment or rehabilitation?
I think it should definitely be on rehabilitation. I think things such as the death penalty, I don't think they have any place in America. I think that we should, as a country, not waste our taxpayers' money in these prisons by just letting these people rot in jail. I think that we should fund programs that help assimilate them back into society, if that's possible.
Real quick, are you pro or in the death penalty and why?
Oh, and why? I just think that it's not our job to determine whether or not someone lives or dies. For me, that's God's responsibility. So I just don't think as people, especially as fellow sinners, we can do that.
Okay. Good job, folks. I'm throwing over to Lois.
Rebuttal.
I'm throwing over to Lois for the rest of the question.
I'm going to rebuttal that one.
Okay.
So, Mr. Taylor, you say there's no place for the death penalty because it's not our job to judge people.
Yes, sir.
So if it's not our job to judge people, then why do we have a criminal justice system at all?
Wait, am I supposed to answer?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think that I think it's a lot different. Sending someone to the grave is a lot different than punishing them at all. In fact, I think that sometimes death penalty is the easy way out for a lot of these people.
So you said you emphasize rehabilitation over punishment. So you think that you can rehabilitate a man who has committed heinous crimes and return them to society? Because I believe you can rehabilitate someone who's committed minor crimes, not a major felony, and put them back into society. But why are you against the death penalty for someone who has killed another human?
Well, like I said before for your first point, well, like I mentioned for my first point, I said if it's possible, and I think that's the key phrase with some of these criminals. And second of all, the death penalty, you said what was something about the heinous crimes, why don't they deserve the death penalty? Again, I just think that it's not our job to determine that, and like I said, it can be the easier way out.
The increasing national debate.
Okay. So some action that I would take in fixing the debt crisis that we have right now are, I would follow the more supply side economic. I'm for competition, and I would promote that by deregulating businesses, because this last administration has seen the lowest amount of business startups in over 30 years. And because of that, our economy continues to decline. So if businesses, small businesses, big businesses, anything can start up and get going, that creates more jobs, more people are getting jobs, more people are paying taxes, we can lower the tax rate and still be making the same amount of money.
Thank you. Next question.
So for me, or for Mr. Taylor?
So the national debt. I think that it begins with a thriving American economy. I think that can be accomplished by helping strengthen the middle class. I think that the government's responsibility is to help those lower classes directly instead of the Republican plan to help the rich get richer and like rely on that trickling down. I think on top of that, certain government programs, I would say they're unnecessary, but they're inefficient. So I think things such as Social Security, they need to be worked on to help stop the increasing debt. Also decrease military spending. I think that should be a priority of ours to be a smarter military, not necessarily a bigger military.
I got an answer for that one. So Mr. Taylor says that the Republicans try to fund the rich and let that trickle down. I'm not for funding the rich. The rich do benefit from actions such as deregulating business because normally the rich are in charge of it. But that also allows for small business startups which fund the lower and middle classes. And small businesses can grow into bigger corporations, more people are in jobs, more people are paid. And also, Mr. Taylor said he wants to defund more of the military. With the amount of intelligence officers that we have working in the field right now, we are still slacking, and there are threats out there such as ISIS and people that are smuggling in over the border, terrorists that would love nothing more to destroy America. And if we defund the military and programs like that, then we lose the upper hand on them, causing them to strike fear into us, and that leads to them eventually ruling us.
Very good. Thank you. Next question is, during your term, would you raise or lower tax?
I think that taxes should definitely change based on income. I think that certain families need tax breaks, and that they just don't have the financial ability to provide that money to the government, especially with so many wasted taxes happening right now. So yeah, I think that taxes should definitely be raised for those with larger incomes, but lower for those lower.
So on the issue of taxes, I'm more for a flat tax that allows everyone to be taxed equally, because I don't think just because you work, you make more money, you should be punished for that. Because if the richer are taxed more heavily, that means that they are being punished for working hard to get to the point that they're at. I also believe that through the startup of small businesses and things like that, that allows for more people to be making money, get out of the financial struggles that they are in. I do agree some people need a tax break, but I would lower taxes all across the board, because if we can get businesses going and the economy starting to rise through that, then we have a chance for people to get out of their tax breaks and pay lower taxes, but the government will still make the money that it needs.
Any rebuttal from the overhead?
That's fine.
Okay, let's do the VPs next. Sydney, I think you'll start off.
Good morning, Ms. School. Next question is about gun control. Will you enforce gun restriction?
I think for the Republican Party, we will not enforce any further regulation on gun control. I think it's the citizens' rights to bear and have guns with them. And for the selling and obtaining of firearms, it will still be upheld, but not further than ammunition will be enforced. And felons and any individuals that are on watch list will not be allowed to purchase firearms, and there will be certain processes set for the selling and bearing arms. Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Would you enforce gun restriction?
Absolutely. We believe that there should be reasonable regulation because there's a lot of negative effects because of gun violence. We've passed the Brady Law and the assault weapons ban. We've increased federal, state, and local gun crime prosecution by 22% since 1992, and that has decreased gun crime by 35%. And we also want to have child safety locks to prevent tragic events. We would also require a license ID, a background check, and gun safety test to buy new handguns. We believe that this would help stop so much gun crime violence.
So I'm going to rebuttal that one too. So by regulating the citizens that go in and buy weapons based on their ID, their social security number, things like that, they give their information for the weapon. It's easier to track them down if they commit a crime. But people that commit crimes normally get weapons off of the black market. They go onto the dark web, they find weapons without serial numbers that have been tracked through countries like Russia and other countries that do not enforce the type of protocol we have for weaponry. They can get their hands on more powerful guns than we allow citizens to have. Because I agree with you on some standard. I don't think you should be able to have a light machine gun that has 200 rounds that can just tear through a wall. But I don't have any problem with assault weapons. So why do you think that regulating the citizens that go through the legal process will cut down on the violence that ensues?
So just because